this Intelligent Briefing. My name is Alex Presley and I'm the editor of Intelligent CIO Europe, and in this edition of our Spotlight series we hear from Craig Donald, CIO at the Football Association, about how its technology processes allow it to remain committed to the future of English football. I hope you enjoy.
Just to start with, I wondered if you could tell us about your role at the Football Association and the scope of your responsibility.
Yeah, of course. So I'm Craig Donald. I'm the Chief Information Officer at the FA. So that's the English Football Association. Even though I do have a Scottish accent, they do let other people in, which is quite nice.
Yeah.
So I'm responsible for all aspects of technology within the FA, which is pretty diverse. I don't know I know what opinion people have of the FA from reading press coverage, but we cover a whole bunch of different things. So we do things like managing the National Stadium at Wembley. So there's a lot of infrastructure work involved in what we do. But we also do things like running the FA Cup, which is a big competition football trophy. We run the Women's Super League in England as well. But we're also heavily involved in running grassroots football across the country. So millions of players that join their local clubs and teams to play in a county league or in a schools league. We're heavily involved in administering all of that as well. And of course, we're also a governing body. So we are responsible for making sure that football behaves itself, I guess, to a certain extent, and also handling things like transfer windows. So, for example, when the transfer window opens those few times a year that it does, any transfer fees that are paid come through the FA. We act as a clearinghouse for all that money. So we see billions of pounds moving, unfortunately, transparently through our bank accounts because they come in and then they leave as well. So I run systems that cover everything from making sure that Harry Kane's PlayStation works when he's on an England training camp, way through to transfer fees and making sure that red and yellow cards are properly processed and paid across the country as well. It's a really broad, somewhat unusual and very interesting remit, even for somebody that isn't the biggest football fan in the world.
Yeah, so all of the important stuff.
Well, some people would say that. Other people would tell me to just do my job and get out the way and let the important stuff happen, which is really, really what I'm focused on doing.
So how do you ensure that the Football Association's technology processes allow it to remain committed to the future of English football?
Yeah, so we, I think it's fair to say that we haven't always been focused on that, that we've probably in the past been just focused on doing what we could with as little money as we possibly could. And so there was probably before I joined, definitely a focus on just delivering the bare bones of our service. We've tried to change that as we've moved forward over the past few years. And really, I think at the heart of what we do now is a lot of partnership work, which maybe sounds like one of those buzzwords and it sounds a little bit twee. But really, we couldn't do the work we've been doing over the past couple of years without working in partnership with the people that we're serving within football and within the FA, helping them understand what it is that we are doing and helping educate them, really. So there's a lot of that partnership work in place. And then behind that, of course, there's all the technology. And this is where the rest of those buzzwords come into play. So we've gone from being very much a kind of on-premise organization, which of course is easy when you own a stadium. Because you have data center space, you've got massive rooms that you can build out, and so it seems, certainly years ago anyway, seemed the easy thing to do to just throw a bunch of servers into a room because we don't have to worry about renting the space or anything. But of course, it's no longer scalable. It's no longer what people expect. It's no longer where technology is really being invested and where technology is evolving and innovating. So over the past few years, we've really made that transition to move into cloud technologies, to being more scalable, to placing a bigger emphasis on our interfaces, really, on the user experience. And the user interfaces as well. So everything has kind of flipped around over the past few years, taking much more of a product-based approach to what we're doing, and evolving into thinking more about products and less about systems, and trying to talk in that way to our customers to make sure that they understand the value that we're trying to bring to them, rather than just being the annoying technologists that put I guess problems in people's way, which is often how we can be seen, I think.
So I noticed in the Contino report online that you were brought on board initially for championing the digital engagement and transformation program. Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Yeah, so the the program actually started before I joined, about a year before I joined. And so when I joined the organisation, it wasn't actually part of my responsibility, but it became my responsibility about a year into my time at the FA. And I've been there now for coming up on 3 years. And when I joined, I looked at what we were doing, and you could see all the good work that was happening because we were building some great front end solutions. So our flagship app, which is called Matchday, was launched with a lot of fanfare and looks amazing and works really well once you can get into it and let it work. But what I also noticed was that there was nothing going on really to fix all of the back end problems, all the invisible problems that we had. We were very much running as two separate organizations with this digital function on one side and the legacy technology function over here. All the money was going into digital. Not a lot of the money was going into transforming the back end, and it was creating more problems for us. So a great example of that is, I think up until very recently, we had maybe 11 or 12 different ways for you as a fan or a participant or a player of football in England to register with the FA. And we had no way to know if the Alex Presley that had registered as a coach was the same Alex Presley that had bought a ticket to go and see England play in the Euros coming up in June, or in the Women's World Cup, or anything else. Yeah. We had no way to marry that information. That was all problems with our back end systems. So when I joined, I took what is maybe a slightly unconventional path and started to look at some of that back end and saying, well, why are we not transforming this at the same time as we're doing the front? Because we were launching these digital products that had great potential, but when we don't know who you are, we can't let you log into the product because we didn't know which one of you were going to be when you were interacting with us. So my approach was really about being a bit more holistic about this, understanding the value that those flagship digital products can bring, but spending time and money on fixing some of this stuff at the back end as well. And that's been a bit of a process, and we're not there yet. And I think the one thing that I guess I was grateful for when Contino came and spoke to me about being featured in this report was the fact that I was quite open about the fact that we're not done and that this is not a perfect digital transformation, but they were still willing to talk and understand and feature us as well, because it can be a little bit chaotic at times, but we're going in the right direction, I think.
And how would you say technology is a key enabler for the fans?
If I could broaden that out a little bit, it's probably not just for fans. And in a sense, it's probably, in some ways, it's less of an enabler for fans because they want to go and watch a game of football. And there's lots of things that we can do around the periphery of that. But ultimately, football is an offline activity, isn't it? You may watch it on a screen, but you're watching the action that's happening on the pitch. It's a slightly different game to American football, where there are so many pauses in a game of American football that you need something to fill in the gaps, and technology can do some very clever things with that and help to fill in some of those gaps. So for fans, technology for me is about getting out the way. It's about making sure they can get to the game as quickly and as easily as possible, and they can enjoy the game as much as they possibly can. So it's simple things like ticketing. It's simple things like making sure that we can deliver a ticket in multiple different ways, be it paper if you want that, be it on your watch, that we can process you if you're going into a ground as quickly as possible, that we can give you up-to-date information on queues at the bars, on queues at the toilets, all these kind of quality of life things really for fans themselves. But where I think, sorry.
I was just going to say, so I guess overall that you are enhancing the visibility for the organisation.
Absolutely, and just as I say, just staying out of the way for fans. But where I think technology does come into its own is when we talk about that broader grassroots community. So we have, 2-3 million people that we're aiming to improve their lives through technology, and again we do that by simplifying. So in up until very recently, if you wanted to register to play football with one of these affiliated clubs in England, which is how the league systems all work in England, you have to affiliate with the FA or with the league who affiliate with the FA. You had to go through manual paper forms filling in. You had to fax things sometimes. All these confusing processes, and they would differ from county to county. And we've tried to simplify that, to harmonise all of that across the country, and just try and get out of the way again of people enjoying football. We rely so heavily on volunteers across the country to deliver all of this football. Most of our clubs are run by volunteers. Most of our leagues have got heavy volunteer participation. And the last thing they need, which unfortunately they've had until recently, is getting up, setting their alarms for 3 o'clock in the morning to log into a system to register their players, because that's when it's the quietest. And it will take them only half an hour instead of 3 hours, as it might later on in the day. So actually, just a few hours ago, we launched a new registration process, which should remove all of that pain, all of those problems, and allow people to register in a matter of seconds and minutes, as opposed to hours and hours and hours. So when we build our business cases, particularly for grassroots football, it's not about revenue, it's not about money, as you might see when you're talking to other organizations. For us, it's about simplifying people's lives. It's about reducing the time it takes to administer football, and allowing people to go and spend more time playing or learning about football or just enjoying watching football. I think I've jokingly said it's less clicking and more kicking, and that's kind of what it is. It's just about getting people out there playing the game, enjoying the game. Yeah. And that's where it really comes into its own.
So you've obviously touched on a few of these innovative capabilities, but just on the whole, I wondered what innovative capabilities the FA now has.
Yeah, so I mean, a lot of what we consider innovative, other people might just look at and say, yeah, so what? But for us, and for a not-for-profit, for a governing body, I think we're making good progress. So a lot of it is about moving to the cloud. A lot of it is about making sure that whatever we're building is responsive. So again, talking about giving time back to our grassroots participants. All of our old systems could only be run when you were sitting at a screen in front of a laptop or a desktop. Now, of course, everything is responsive. Everything can work on a mobile phone or on a tablet or on a laptop across multiple different platforms. And that's been really, really important for us. Making sure that everything is scalable. So we've been using Kubernetes a lot to help us automate the deployment of the new modules that we're building, moving everything away from these big monolithic systems and decomposing them really into microservices. So rather than having one big system that does everything for grassroots football, we're now building a series of probably 10 or 11 modules, each one of which does a very specific thing for football, which of course allows us in the future, if we make a change over here, we don't have to worry about testing everything else in this stack. We can simply test this thoroughly and look at the integrations and then roll it out. So it just makes all of these things a lot easier for us. And then again, doing things that other people would consider to be normal. Automated testing, what a revelation. Every other CIO would probably look at me like I was crazy, but we weren't doing a lot of that. And we're doing a lot more automation in our testing now. It's allowing my internal teams to focus more on the intellectual property of the technology rather than the actual doing of it. So our testers now are more heavily involved in building tests, running tests, understanding the output, and not sitting there and clicking through different screens and so on. And then simple things like making sure that when we sign on when you sign up to the FA, that you do it once, that you do it in one way. And so we're rolling out Microsoft's what they call B2C, which is their consumer-focused login process, to make sure that we have a consistent way of signing in, and then treating all of your different personas within the FA as just different subsets of that one experience. Yeah. So a lot of this is what anybody would have done, and we just haven't been able to do until now.
When you say that CIOs would probably look at you and say, so what? I think with a digital transformation journey, from reading a lot about this, and I think it seems that everybody's journey is kind of personal to them. So you have a different set of priorities to what the next person would have. So I think it's all relative, isn't it?
Yeah, I think that's really true, and I think because football is more about football, than it is about the technology. It's taken us some time to help, again, educate our stakeholders, to help them understand the value that we can bring, which is why some of this stuff has not really been as heavily invested in the past. You know, other organizations, and certainly some of those that are featured in the Contino report, like O2 and Sainsbury's and so on, you know, the digital product is front and center of everything they do, because it is how they interact with you know, nearly all, especially nowadays, nearly all of their consumers. For us, it hasn't been as front and center. So we've had a lot of education to do internally. And I've had to really work hard with our various stakeholder boards to get permission to do a lot of this stuff, to get permission to spend money here when it could be getting spent on, I don't know, building a 3G pitch so that people can play football better. And so it's a very different kind of sell that you've got to do internally to find the money to make these things happen. But you're right, it is, it's very different, it's very personal, it's very unique. I think the FA is, I guess we all say, it's more unique than some, but it does have a different set of challenges.
I guess football has always been football. It's always existed outside of technology, hasn't it? And it will always probably continue to be that way. Whereas with a company like Sainsbury's, it's relying on the technology as a core component to the way that it functions. So yes,
and I think that has been our biggest challenge, because that is a lot of the that's the view of a lot of people that we see in football. Well, it's football, it happens offline. But what people then forget is that everything else that we do is happening online. And so the expectations that we all have get translated into every other aspect of our lives. You know, it's difficult for us to accept a 1990s desktop-based experience for registering a player when you can sign up with your bank account and review your bank balance in 3 clicks. You know, it doesn't equate anymore, and so we had to make some of these investments. And just helping people understand that has been a big part of the past couple of years.
And how has your work improved your relationships with English football participants?
I think it's a little bit early to say. I think we've sown a lot of the seeds, and I think internally and with our partners in the County FA network that really are on the front line, I think we've built a lot of goodwill within those organisations because they can see the work that's happening. We've only in the past couple of months have we started to go publicly and talk about it, because we are quite a risk-averse organisation, and it's taken us a little bit of time to get the confidence to go and talk about this stuff. So, you know, I think, being honest, I would say it hasn't really improved the relationship yet. But I think that it really will in the next few months. You know, the launch of our player registration module this morning will hopefully transform the lives of all of the league administrators up and down England over the next few months. And we're doing a lot of work in the coming year on our web presence. If you've gone onto the fa.com in the past few months, it's not the best. We've got some work to do there, and we're working very hard on that in the background now. And I think once you see that going live and you start to see the way that we are looking to engage in a more personal way with fans and participants, then I think people will start to really value the relationship they have with the FA and with our County FA network and with the England football teams that we have, the national teams that are playing. I think people will start to see the value of the work we're doing over the next few months. But it's a little bit early for us right now.
Yeah. And kind of, you have just touched on it a little bit there, but I just wondered what your technology roadmap looks like for 2021.
Yeah, more of the same. So a lot more of this decomposition of monoliths. So we have a system that's called whole game system, which any club secretary will curse and swear whenever they hear the 3-letter acronym WGS. It's a burning platform for us. It really is close to failure. So the next couple of years are about getting more and more of the functionality that is in there out of it onto these more modular microservice-based platforms. And transforming that user experience. So a lot of that is about administering of football. It's not really what the fans would see. But as I just said, I think what the fans will start to see is a better experience when they engage with the FA on the web. I think you will start to see us looking at our governance platforms and looking at our fan platforms and trying to create a distinction between those two things, and making sure the fan experience is more responsive, more cutting edge. And then we're starting to play around with some more innovative stuff. It's difficult when you're a governing body to find the time and the money to kind of throw away on new technologies. But we're looking very hard at conversational AI, how we can integrate Google and Alexa and all these different things into our offerings. And we're also looking really closely at augmented reality, at video and tracking, and what we can do to try and enhance the grassroots game by allowing people to take clips and share them and so on as well. And on top of that, improving Matchday, which, as I mentioned earlier, is our flagship app. Looking at improving that, making sure that people can sign into that, trying to attract more people into that app because we believe it gives them a better experience than a lot of our other interfaces. So a lot more of the same, a lot more of that evolution, focusing more and more on the products that we're building and having that kind of more product management mindset on everything that we're doing, and also really focusing on trying to deliver things in a more agile and iterative way. We've been very guilty in the past of only launching things at the end of a football season before the start of the new season. And again, trying to educate people to help them understand that isn't the only time we have to launch things. Player registration launching this morning, for example, won't really be used in anger until August. But it's there now, and people are testing it and playing with it and getting familiar with it. And it's helpful that we can do those things during the season now as well. So a lot more of that iterative process.
Yeah. You mentioned augmented reality, and I think those sort of automation tools are really up and coming in sport, aren't they, currently?
Yeah, and we do a lot of that work on our senior team side. So what I didn't mention at the start on my kind of opening description of the FAA is, of course, that we run the England football teams that compete in international competition. We also have a hotel, but in St George's Park up in the Midlands, we've got a team of performance analysts, and we work very closely with them and in a very strong partnership with Google and Google Cloud Platform to take all of that data, to ingest all of that video, to analyze it, and to generate insights, which then people like Gareth Southgate or our other coaches of our various teams will look at and understand and analyze. And we're not there to be the only tool that gets England to win its next championship or tournament. But what we're there to do is to allow them to throw some of this data together and to create, hopefully, some of those sparks and generate some of those insights that help the coaches understand particular behaviours and help them see future stars in the making and help them continue along the pathway. And we're applying that in a way that is equal in both the men's and the women's games, as well as in the disability games that we have as well, and disability teams that we have too. So trying to apply all that technology as broadly as we can.
Yeah. Finally, what does a nomination in the Contino TLA Top Innovative Report mean to you and the wider business?
Yeah. It makes me really proud. I always hesitate to say that word because that's a little bit cocky. Maybe I should say.
I think that's such a British thing, though, isn't it? You don't.
Yeah, I'm very humble to be nominated.
Yeah.
But actually, I am really proud that we're nominated because it reflects the work that the team are doing. I've spoken a bit about education and partnership. And really, everything that we're doing is a reflection of building that strong partnership and making sure that my team can engage effectively with the rest of the organisation. So I'm really proud that Contino and Tech London Advocates chose us to be included in this. As I said earlier, I'm proud that they chose us, even though a lot of what we're doing is a bit chaotic and isn't always textbook and doesn't always follow very clear methodologies, but it is showing progress. And so for me, it's really important that my teams can see some of it, can reflect on some of that, and can reflect in the glory of some of that, I suppose, because it's good for them. It's great that our stakeholders in football see it, but it's really good that our peers see it and recognise it as well. So I am really, really proud. I'm really excited that we were included in the report, and I hope that the rest of my team can take that and feel proud as well, because it is down to the work they're doing that we're able to be recognised this way. So it's fantastic.
Well, congratulations.